there's people out there that'll be like, oh, spoil! They didn't say spoilers. I listened to the whole thing, and they ruined it for me.
Well, then you
Doesn't
And
seem to bother my grandma.
would normally. She doesn't even
This
need to
is
watch
very
the
true.
show.
Nanny, if you're still on, we love
Getting
you,
the full
Nanny.
description.
Still not even watching it. It hasn't
It's
ruined
like an
it for her, though.
audiobook.
It hasn't ruined anything.
You know.
That's how she sees it. She's like, I haven't seen the show, but I love the podcast. I'm like, I don't know how that's possible, but I'll take it.
How your grandma consumes this narrative is the podcast based on the show based on the game.
Yes.
Yeah.
Welcome to A Bunch of Us, a Nerdy Bunch weekly discussion on HBO Max series adaptation of The Last of Us. My name's English Dave, and help me endure and survive are my co-hosts Raven and Rocket Mike. What's up, nerds?
Was
What up, Dave?
Endure and survive.
a little redundant.
Endure and survive.
Endure and survive. That's a phrase that the gamers will know, because it is used as well in the game, and it's kind of almost like a mantra in the game, right? Endure and survive. This is the episode. We've been looking forward to this narrative being portrayed on screen. Is one of our favorite narratives from the game, which is Henry and Sam's story. So, Mike, I'm going to start with you. How did you feel overall about seeing this narrative played out? Knowing where it's going, what were your emotional kind of highs and lows?
I knew they were going to stick the landing at the very end. I felt like there was not much to alter to kind of perfect that, but I love getting a much more of a backstory rather than, didn't mind reading, notes around the game to kind of get some context. That's what was happening, but it definitely helped adding in a few characters, seeing a different side to the rebels that just overthrew Phaedra, knowing exactly what Henry did to actually, have to like run away and separate himself. And, the adjustment they made with Sam, making him more reliant on his big brother. And overall, I just really loved this portrayal of the two of them together more than the game. I always say this is the first time I felt like they actually did a better job than what the game did. And I know even the game director had mentioned at times, I think it was when they decided to make the decision to make Sam deaf. And he was like, why didn't I think of that? I should have put that in the game originally. Because it puts it, they need each other. But with this, it actually makes it, like I said, he's now more reliant on Henry. And I thought it was also a great way to add more inclusion into the cast and the overall story, as they have been with LGBTQ characters. And I think it's even great, bring more accessible characters into the show. So overall, yeah, this is probably my favorite episode thus far, and that is not easy to say because everything has been gold so far.
Raven, I'll ask you a similar question. Mike mentions that they made some changes from the game to the show, because in the game, I was kind of, because I played the game recently again. He's not with that rebel group. He's almost like Joel and Ellie,
Right.
where he's just trying to go through, and he just gets stuck there, needs help getting out. And in the game, he's also more capable. He's got a gun, he helps you out, you're not just shooting by yourself. But in this, he's not the same kind of person. So there's still subversions. He tells you, I've never killed anyone. There's an empty gun. Mike talks about the brother being deaf, so there's a different dependency. And also the brother's a lot younger.
Yes.
I think he's about a year, he's close to
8.
Ellie's age in the game, but now he's a lot younger.
Yeah.
So Raven, what did you think about these changes to the characters and the story within what we know?
I like the changes, like Mike said. I think that these changes were for the better in this situation. Honestly, a lot of the changes, so the whole adaptation long have been kind of for the better. But this is probably the one I like the most, and also the casting of an actual deaf actor.
I know it's his first time.
which is
Oh yeah, it's
incredible.
definitely
I
his first
thought, I'm
time.
like, no, this kid has definitely had
Yeah,
work before
and he
he
killed it.
did.
Because I had moments of like not believing he was deaf almost.
Mhm, yeah.
I was like, I was like, are you
He's
really
too
deaf?
good.
But I had to Google it, and sure enough, he actually is. But yeah, I like that it, again adds more. It adds more to the theme of the dependency situation, and like you also understand more why Henry would be provoked to like do the things that he does to save Sam, because you get the idea that he's always been looking out for Sam. Because
Before,
even if
yeah,
it wasn't
yeah.
an apocalypse, or even if it wasn't, some type of epidemic, he would still be caring for Sam in any
Hmm.
situation, because Sam is still deaf. So even so I do like the idea that kind of, that Henry has had to be protective of Sam since forever. And the idea that like this is somebody who also isn't strong. He's not like Joel, where he's physically able to take somebody down, or able to intimidate, or able to smuggle and steal and do these other shifty things. But what he can do is be an informant. And I also love the moment of Joel dealing with finding out Henry was an informant. Like I
Yes.
love that moment
I
because
don't
it
work
didn't
with
have to be
rats.
in there. Right. The instant I don't work with rats. I was like, fuck yeah, we don't work with rats. And I was like, oh shit. I was like, no, Henry's a good guy.
Right. But
But
I
but you
love,
Mm.
understand. Like, and I
right.
love that line of dialogue was added, because I feel like in a lot of shows we see people rat each other out constantly, but we never see kind of the ramifications on the uh like society's aspect. Like, what is it like going back into your community after they find out that
Mhm.
you're an informant? And a lot of shows we see, they're bold and proud about ratting somebody out, and they're monologuing during, and announcing it to people, oh, I've been planning this forever, and haha, I double crossed you. And you're like, is that okay though? You're wondering, like maybe in this time that's all right. But I love that it's human nature. You don't want to associate with somebody, especially when you're the kind of person that does questionable things, like Joel. So I love the changes. I also lastly absolutely love that, going back to what I was saying, that Henry has blood on his hands in this. In the game, we're led to believe that Henry is just completely innocent. We have
Mhm.
no reason to believe that Henry has any type of dark past at all, which is why we all absolutely love Henry. Henry's just a good guy, and then he's dead, and it hurts. But in this, I love that we find out that Henry actually double crossed Kathleen's brother, you know, and was an informant. And when you find that out, it's like, ooh, and even what he says, I'm the bad guy, right? I'm the bad guy.
Because I
But
did
it
bad
just
guy stuff.
right, but it just feeds back into the overarching theme of the entire show, which is there are no good guys. There are no bad guys, People
Survivors
do bad things
endure
and
and
people do
survive.
good things. Endure and survive. Right. Main theme of the show. So I think that's probably the thing I like the most, is that they added depth to Henry's character as well, even beyond giving Sam, like, beyond Sam being deaf. Henry also has a dark past.
A couple of themes this episode highlights, and these are themes that are running through the entire show, are one of ramifications, right? Ramifications of the things you do, no matter what you think, no matter what your justification. Because even the antagonist, right, Kathleen, there's ramifications for her at the end of the story. There's always ramifications for things, right? And there's ramifications for how the episode starts. Fedra's driven out. We see what happens when Fedra's driven out. We get a sense. We've got a sense through previous episodes in this episode that when Fedra was controlling things, they were doing some bad things on the side too. We find out Kathleen's backstory in the last episode. She was seemingly just a nice person, driven. Her brother was killed by Fedra. People were killed by Fedra for doing simple things. But then we also get this sense of when she's interrogating the collaborators, the rats. You always get a sense that every person that gave information did so under a situation similar to Henry, where they had no choice. Or, like the doctor said last episode, they had a gun to my head. You don't get a sense that anyone ratted because they wanted, to fill up their pockets, in a sense like that. You see this regret
Yeah.
in everybody. And I love from that opening. That opening scene was brutal, right? I loved what Henry says when you treat people a certain way. As soon as other people get a chance to treat you back, they'll do the same thing to you. So it's this perpetual
Mhm.
cycle. Raven, you spoke about Henry kind of um, not being as tough as Joel and not being as aggressive as Joel, right? We get that when he first sees Joel because he needs to escape because his brother and him are going to starve to death, right? So you see that kind of narrative through line. What does that say to you about how Joel is in this world? That someone could look at Joel and be like, "Yo, that's a fucking killer. I need him on my side."
Yeah, I feel like, I mean, we already know Joel is a badass killer, but I definitely feel like, especially for somebody who's been in hiding for over a week, hiding from these same people that this one guy took down in, less than 5 minutes. But I do love that we deal with that aspect too, where this is the truth, you team up with people, you build alliances, and that's, also part of the game, is the alliances you build. And so I do love that. I love the perspectives of Joel because that's the constant thing is he's a villain to some and a hero to others. And in Henry's case, it's a knight in shining armor. He is a hero, It's like this is my take it out. So I do love that. And just to fast forward a little bit, the very last scene with Joel in the tower. Oh,
Mhm.
So good.
wow.
Love that in the game, that
Wow.
sequence. And it's
Yeah.
just done so much
One of
like
my favorite
more.
parts in the game. It's like seeing it. You know how like it's one of those things that you don't expect and you don't feel like you need. And then
Yeah.
when it's happening, you're like, "Oh my god!" I was geeking out so hard. But but he stood true. Henry was completely right. He is the guy to get you out of there.
Mike, I want to talk about Kathleen. We get to find out more about her and her motivation in this one. I think continuing the trend of this show of filling out character narratives to a point where you understand their motivations, even though you don't agree with their actions. We find out about her brother and how her brother was a good man. Even Henry says about her
Yeah.
brother being a good man. And but being a good man got him killed, and he even asks her to forgive Henry, and she's just like, nope. So what do you think of like just that she was this like teacher who's become this like really like from point of view evil person and doesn't give a fuck.
This has just become a sad story of revenge and what it does to everyone. It just creates monsters. It eats you from within. It turns the kindest people into the worst versions of themselves. And you can tell from this. Uh, you can tell from her that going back to that scene where she's standing in her childhood bedroom and she's talking about how her brother used to make her feel safe whenever she was afraid of a thunderstorm, and they were just in this safe wooden box and nothing could hurt her, nothing could hurt them as long as they were in this box together. And it just showed how much her brother really meant to her, and you rip that away from her. It's stolen, all from someone that you thought you trusted. And so now it's become her mission, her main priority, not her seventh priority, as she said. Oh, do you want to do, like, we're going to do this? We're going to do this now? No. Well, do you want to do this tomorrow? Next week? How about we wait? How about next month? Again, she does not. She will risk everything to make sure that Henry suffers in the same way that Joel will risk everything to make sure Ellie gets to where she needs to be. And it's the same way that I'm sure that, Joel would have done anything to save his daughter. It just goes, everyone's going to have a version of that story, of that goal. And it's what, and
Which,
same, and what Henry was willing to do to save Sam,
mhm,
to basically
mhm,
trading in her brother for his. It's not fair. It's not an easy
mhm,
decision to make. But when your brother was just a kid, probably younger than 8, you probably had when it was, I don't know how long they were in, the QZ, 5 years old maybe, with
mhm.
leukemia, and the only
Yeah.
way to you're forced to save your own brother is to trade in what he said was a great man. that
Hmm.
it makes me think that they probably were very good friends. And, he
Oh,
was
they do.
probably
Yep.
not a collaborator before that. He probably was part of this
Oh,
resistance
yeah.
until he was left with this decision. And then he became the biggest collaborator of them all. And it is just this trust being broken, you know, families being traded one for the other. You're put in this impossible corner and forced to torture yourself to make this decision for the better, and you don't even know if it's going to work at the end. And and that
Hmm.
is the
Right.
tragedy. Is like at the end of the day, at the end of this episode, everyone lost.
It's funny because again, I was talking about the themes going through this, and you brought one up in terms of the person who the dynamic duos, right? Or the duos, the dynamics of duos. It's a dynamic duos. The dynamics of these duos, and having one person who's more of the protector than the other. Right? And you have Joel, who's a protector of Ellie and his own daughter, who failed to protect, and Tess, who he failed to protect. And you had previous episode where you had Bill, and he was a protector of Frank, and Henry, protector of Sam. But in Kathleen's case, which I find interesting, is almost her protector was killed. She's not the protector
Yes,
of him because she tells that
yes,
story, right? And it's almost like Ellie losing Joel, the other way around. And so, because her protector, the person she looked up to, the person who said everything would be okay, was betrayed and thus killed, it snaps her, and she's like, "Well, what's the fucking
yeah,
point? What is the point? There's no point, and it's the only way to have control of things is through this kind of power." But which again, as they say, but you put too much focus on one thing, like you said, Mike, it's not her seventh, eighth, it's her first priority. What should have been her first priority is the one good thing Fedra did, which was keep the zombies or the infected
yeah.
at bay. And once they were gone,
For
you weren't doing
years,
that anymore.
they have
And that
that under control. They had almost had them wiped out,
right,
almost.
right? But you ignored that when you took control, which that should have been your first priority, not the seventh, right? And even, last episode, Perry tried to be like, hey, should we tell peeps about that thing that's pushing underground? And she's like, nah. And this episode, he tries to kind of bring something up, and she's still like, nah. And then even at the end, the way she dies, Perry's just like, get away, go. And she's like, nah. Like, it's because she's so focused on this one thing. And that's what I love about this show is it's showcasing that sometimes that thing that you focus on so badly can get you to ignore these other things, you know.
I just feel like also like you see like a lot of these people who lose their person that they have to protect, or when you lose one of the pair, people have nothing left to live for. In this
Yeah.
time, which is really tragic too. They become this like shell of a person, and I feel like that's what Kathleen is. It's like she doesn't care if she dies; she doesn't
Well,
have
it
to.
is that.
Mhm.
It's like,
Same with Joel. If he lost, yeah, if he didn't get Ellie in replacement of
No,
Tess.
if he didn't get, if he didn't get Tess before, he's always had someone, right?
Right. He had his brother, and then he
Hmm.
had Tess, and now he has Ellie. But Joel without any of these people would cease to exist. Like he has no purpose. He would be very much like Kathleen.
Hmm.
Going out guns blazing. So I do love that. We get to deal with that. And lastly, just on the duos, like you were saying, is that I love too that this show is kind of showing us week to week different types of duos, and also how everyone else is failing, or most likely the odds are against you. Like any duos traveling together probably aren't going to make it, and I feel like it just further shows like the stakes and how serious the journey that Joel and Ellie are taking actually is.
Hmm.
with the just the duos too, it is like if losing your other half. So far, it's like you either die with your other,
Hmm.
or this is weird Dark Knight thing. You live long enough to see yourself become a lesser version of yourself, a shell.
Yeah,
We're seeing that
it's
in
true.
Joel for sure. He is the key product of that, and how he was a very very loving father, but worked really hard. He had great community around him. You know, friends with his neighbors, worked very closely with his brother, and then everything just comes shattering. He ends up killing his neighbor, obviously because he was forced to, and then losing his daughter, and then burning bodies and killing innocent people and ripping people off. I'm sure way worse stuff too that we haven't even learned.
20
Um,
years.
and yeah, and then 20 years of that. And
Just look at all the shit he's done in a week.
yeah, this guy can get
The
stuff
body
done.
count of the week,
Right.
man.
Right. One of the parts I liked in their journey when and Henry is with them is we get to see the tunnels, which we saw in the games.
Hmm.
And I thought they recreated that really, really well. I loved that. In the games we knew about that story of the people who were there through notes. The
Ish.
story of Ish, yes.
Yeah.
Ish. I was hoping we'd get to see him.
A whole
I
episode.
can't lie. I didn't think he'd get an episode, but I was hoping that either
A flashback.
they were still alive
Okay.
and they like had their demise after we left,
Hmm.
or that like because Ish did survive in the game. I wanted to at bare minimum run into Ish, you know, so like he could tell the story of what happened to the people. But it's obviously implied, and it's not as dark, which I appreciate because in the game, shit, that whole storyline is
Yeah.
He
dark.
did so much.
You find a room where it's like just this older adult body that's
Oh
like a
my god.
gunshot victim, and there's all these children skeletons
Yep.
around his body, and then you find a note that basically says like, you know, they infiltrated and they've got us cornered and I gotta do what I gotta do. You're like, damn.
Yep.
Like I had to pause it. I had to take a like day break after that episode. But yeah, in
Someone
comparison,
someone broke the rules.
significantly more beautiful. Yeah, we like this change.
Right.
I'm okay with it. I'm okay with it.
And part of
It's
this,
still a traumatic episode.
Yeah.
what I like is that during that journey, again, I mentioned that they changed the age of Sam to be a lot younger than Ellie, as opposed to similar in age. And talking about duos, it almost creates a mini duo between Ellie and Sam. And I think it makes how the ending ends that much more heartbreaking because it's not just friends like in the game. It's more like Ellie has someone younger to take care of. And I got you. I'm going to take care of you. You know, I'll
Yeah.
protect you. And she now gets a failure, right?
Hmm.
She gets a sense of failure. And even at the end, after they bury the bodies, you know, not to skip ahead too quickly, but when she says to Joel, come on, like, it's like, oh, like you can sense that, ooh,
Yeah.
Well,
childhood
Little
leaving
chess
destroyed.
situation. Little first, you know,
leaving the
it all
final
comes
note
full circle.
of
Yeah,
It all
her.
yeah,
comes
yeah.
full
I'm sorry.
circle.
Yeah.
Yeah, the
She's
final note.
acknowledged it, and now she just kind of wants to bury it, just like this, literally and figuratively, wants to bury this whole thing. Like, I am
And it's
sorry for
almost
this,
like
and then just move on.
in burying Sam and Henry, but particularly Sam, she's almost burying her childhood.
Hmm.
You know, I can imagine her not being as spunky anymore. It'd still be there, but it's almost like there's a turning point, right? But then at the same
Well,
time, there's a turning point for Joel because now he has to be more aware of her. You know, I think because we don't get this burial moment, or at least we don't see it in the game because we skip forward, right? So we
Right.
don't see this moment. And I feel like Joel, up until this point, isn't the type to waste time, quote unquote, to use that term loosely, waste time burying someone. So the fact that he's doing this, it's almost a turning point for Joel because he's caring. He started caring about Henry and Sam. He even says to Henry, you know, we can insinuates that we can actually move together. We don't have to go our separate ways as he insisted before. So I kind of think that's interesting to see the two turning points for these two characters, Ellie and Joel.
I feel like, you know, it also marks like there's a big character shift too that kind of happens for both characters in this episode, and I feel like especially one big thing is I feel like this is Ellie's the first time that she really senses fear. Like even though she dealt with the clickers and all of that, granted it was scary, but you know her biting ended up even being a joke. You know, like directly after she walked out, like, oh, I got bit. Come on,
Mm,
you know. But
Yeah.
this episode, I feel like she got to see the actual dangers of like the
mm-hmm,
outside world, whether it be
mm,
people suck, people are scary, you know, them being tricked originally. And then on top of that, in this episode, when she gets chased into the car by the clicker, I feel like because she saw a girl, she hesitated because it was a younger girl.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas with any other clicker, any other thing, she would have shot, and she has a gun, or maybe she lost the gun, but either way, she would have been more defensive, I feel. But, I felt like even in the car, she was still kind of not as cutthroat as Joel would have been. She
Mm-hmm.
escapes, she leaves the girl, walks away, and then later only to see that same little girl that almost killed her, that attacked her in the car, literally rip Kathleen apart in front of her,
Which I
so
love.
I absolutely love that. I love the moment. That, and then on top of that, having her big hero moment where she gets to feel like Joel,
Mm-hmm.
who's been this person protecting her. She gets to save Henry and Sam, which is a big thing for her,
Yeah.
and but sadly, it's not like your comic books. It's not like the stories you've read, and it's not like even what you witnessed with Joel, because you see the other perspective of somebody he saved. You don't see the perspective of being the person who saves people and
Mm-hmm.
loses people. So this is the first time where, even though she saved Sam and Henry, Sam gets bit anyway,
Mm-hmm. She
and
fails.
exactly. And this is her first real failure, and having to see that Sam dies, you know what I'm saying? Like, regardless of what has happened before she made it with Joel, Sam dies, and you've lost one for real this time, while knowing that you have a cure, and also realizing in this episode that's not how it works.
What I love about that moment is that that's a very kid thing to do. Let me rub
Completely,
my blood.
Yeah.
completely.
Let me rub. That's such a kid thing.
And
Like
in the
it'll
moment, I
work.
was like,
Oh.
oh. And that was what made me
Ooh.
emotional too. It's like, you
Ooh.
really think it's gonna work, and
It's
it's
like,
not.
oh, it's not going to work.
Again, it
It's
works that way in comic books,
then that's why I love that. It's such a kid moment. And also not just as a kid moment, again, another transition. She's starting to believe in her ability as this person who's immune to it. Because, like she's been told, you're the one that's going to save everyone. We need you to be in this place. And so she's thinking, yeah, let me start with Sam, and it doesn't work. And I can imagine that's just going to make it be like, well, fuck that shit. What's the point of being this person who has this immunity if I can't help anybody, and what that does to her in a devastating way. And I love that. But also, I think we also see another moment of transition development, I should say. Raven, you mentioned that sniper attack when she saves Henry and Sam, but at the same time, Joel is providing cover. I think this is another cool moment of teamwork,
I
to
love
see.
that moment. The subtle head nod.
Right.
It was very, very subtle, but it was perfect.
This is a killer team. And then what I love
They're
is that
bonding.
not only is it teamwork bonding, but you get most of the narrative from, because we follow these characters so much, we get so used to who they are. But when you see them from the perspective of someone like Henry, who's just like, wait, you survived a clicker attack? Like she survived. They're almost like a
Two?
superhero team. Like, dude, they're almost like a
They
superhero team.
are.
And you're like, yeah, they are badasses, aren't they? Like, that's why they're the only survivors by the end of this, like you really understand that
Yeah.
these two are badass characters together. And you start seeing the beginnings of that in this episode. And I think that's really, really well done. But Kathleen, oh no, I was gonna say, but as Kathleen didn't pay attention to, I loved how it was done, guys. I think I didn't expect it coming. The
No.
truck goes boom, and then Kathleen's about to shoot, and then turn around, horde from the
I didn't
floor.
expect it to come
Mike.
out
Oof.
that
Not
way.
there. I did expect a
Something.
horde.
I expected
Simply
something
because
to
throughout the
disrupt it.
entire scene, I was thinking that. I was thinking, how is it possible that there's all these gunshots, that there's all of this noise, explosions, a tank crash, and there's no
Mm.
infected? And the whole time I was wondering that, but I was like, whatever, I don't care. This is
Because they
good.
also tell us that they've
And
cleared the infected.
right. So that was my acceptance, but I also thought to myself, even if they're miles away, y'all got about 10, 15
Yeah.
minutes. You know? So I also love that, like, soon as the audience kind of forgets about the threat, that's when it happens. And boy did they deliver. Wow.
It kind of reminded me of
Just
like
like
Lord
there
of
was
the
like,
Rings, like where
right.
all like
Oh
goblins are coming
yeah.
out of the tunnels or something like that. It was
It was
intense.
epic. That
That
yeah. It is that
And it was
epic, like
all, a lot
golden
of it was
moment.
all practical, was actual actors. They had hundreds of stunt actors running around. Or even the little girl you talk about, she's like a contortionist in real life, just twisting her
That's so
body,
dope.
just like
Yeah,
crazy.
they went to school. There was a whole boot camp for the infected. Like all the actors had to go through. It was a couple of, I think it was a couple of weeks of a
Hmm.
course
It was the
where they
same
had to
camp that
teach them
did
how to
Plan.
Walking Dead.
No, no. Well, Walking Dead, but also
Planet of the
there
Apes,
you go,
yes, it
Planet of the
was Planet
Apes.
of the Apes.
Yes.
Um, but yeah, and like taught them how like to do the walk, how to make the sounds, and they practiced it for weeks, and boy did it pay off. Because there
Oof.
was little moments where I was kind of squinting, like, is that CG? But it wasn't like bad at all. It was more so just there was so much going on that it became a
Yeah,
blur.
but they're actually
But
just coordinating so many
yeah,
extras. That's why.
and the
Just
bloater,
oof. Oof.
ah. I was at home just I don't think I was breathing for
That
the
was
last like
also a
10
big
minutes of
guy
the
in
show.
prosthetics. Just the
That's
actual
amazing.
actor in
That's
prosthetics for
crazy.
that one. And I
I
love
love that
that.
he controls the horde too.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know that yell that he gives out, "Roar!" And they all
Right.
just kind of follow him. And I'm also very nervous for like the next like 20 miles around the area because where are they going next? Like they
Right,
have to be
right.
going back to the town to the poor people that think that they just got liberated from Fedra and now have no
Yeah,
one
that's true.
No
because their
protection.
entire right the
Squad,
whole protection they were out there
because
trying to kill
Kathleen sent
Henry.
everyone, right? Kathleen sent everyone.
So
So
who's
that's it.
gonna? Oh, oof,
Sorry. What's it called?
stressful.
Sorry, Kansas. Or was it Kansas City?
Like Kansas
Kansas
City's
City,
going
yeah.
Yeah,
down. I'm
Kansas
sorry.
City.
You
Sorry,
might have
Kansas.
won the Super Bowl, but
You lost your city.
you're going
You
down.
really lost it,
I,
actually.
I
Right.
was
You actually lost.
I was kind of upset that Call of Duty guy with his glorious beard didn't have like
Oh, Perry.
one moment
Like a
of just
warrior's death.
he's like
He had
telling
a
Kathleen to
Queen
go
Wakanda
away.
death.
Like, yeah, I feel like I liked his character. He's needed one moment of just doing something badass
Yeah.
before he gets, ripped. Just like in the game, face ripped.
He grew that beard. All right. Not everyone can accomplish that.
He will be known forever for that beard.
Right,
Okay.
right.
At least the bloater did the right thing and ripped off the head,
Right.
not the beard. They're like, this is beautiful. I'm going to take this home with me.
Just gonna
Yoink.
snatch that on. It's
Right.
a new what is that inventory item?
Right.
Yeah, really.
Perry's beard.
Just hooks it to his belt.
Right.
Couple
But just like
extensions.
with Perry's always walking around with his gun like this, like a badass. I wanted to see like something. I thought he'd be more capable, but I think he's also
He
distracted.
practiced weeks for that stance. Didn't even
Right.
get to shoot anyone.
Right. Though I
Trash.
think his love for Kathleen ultimately is what kind of, because he's paying attention to her, like get away, and she's just like, I want to kill children because children die every day, and guess what? Irony, a child killed you. I love that, by the way.
Ha. Oh
Love
That
yeah.
that.
was,
It's a
yeah.
nice
Yeah.
turnaround where it's like
It was
children die
lovely.
every day.
Mhm.
Yeah, well, a
But then
child's
it's
gonna kill
also
you.
like you said, the fate do its thing, Kathleen.
Yep, yep. But again, what I love about that, again, it's what bothers me with some post-apocalyptic shows is that they almost glorify violence, right? They almost kind of enforce that, because you come out of some of these post I can never say the word
Post
post-apocalyptic.
apocalyptic.
Say it 5 times back to
Mhm.
back.
Post
That-
apocalyptic. Post apocalyptic.
I knew you'd
Just
actually
gonna
try.
stop. Of
But you
course.
always, when you come out of these shows or movies, you always get this sense of, well, when the zombie apocalypse happens, I'm not trusting anybody. Fuck everyone. I'm doing things by myself and my own people. And what I like about this show is it also highlights that that can be bad too. It doesn't glorify that and says that's the way to go about doing things, because it also shows that, well, if you focus on that, that can also blind you to some of the things you should be focusing on, the real things you should be focusing on, which I think we see elements of that in the last episode, or one of the previous episodes with Bill and Frank, right? It shows you some of the other things you might want to focus on, and living a life, and even gaining their relationship and friendship. If it wasn't for Frank, they wouldn't have had a friendship with Tess and Joel. They wouldn't have, and how the things that can lead to. So there's a positive side to making friendship. Even I love the sequence, different to the game, when Henry and Joel first meet in the game. Henry finds out that Joel punches hard. and
Definitely. That's how he learns he's a superhero. He gets
right.
fucking Superman punched to the chest.
where in this one, Henry instantly recognizes that I need to make peace with these people because working together is beneficial for us. So not everything is about betrayal, and if there is betrayal, you understand why. From the person's perspective, it's not just like everyone's just doing things because it's like end of the world, fuck everybody, we're all evil to each other. And I love that this show doesn't play it so black and white like that. There's this kind of gray areas to how things are portrayed. I wanted to ask you a question, Raven, about something and I forgot. Oh yes, another part talking about morality and things like that, and showing uh, uh, a different side to Joel. The sniper moment with the old man, Raven. How did that moment make you feel? Don't do it. Don't do it.
I was at home like, don't do it too. I was like, don't do it. He will shoot you, and he did. Um, yeah, it's another day in the life. Unfortunately, you get to see the full extent of, Joel does kill people, period. Innocent, not innocent, whatever, young,
But he
old.
gets sense he's tired of killing people.
He really doesn't want to.
Yeah.
But I
You
will
know,
say too, this episode kind of shows that is that like something about I feel like Ellie coming into Joel's life has made has made Joel kind of view things differently.
100%.
Like the violence and killing people and all those things feel unnecessary, or at least because he has eyes on him now and has
Mm-hmm.
somebody to kind of answer to. I feel like
Mm-hmm.
it's made him start to like take it in and kind of wonder, is this necessary?
Mm-hmm.
And I do love that. And it was tough, that moment, like you said, where he sees the old man, and you could even see it in the old man's eyes. He's not going to be able to go back to his community after that.
Yeah, it's
He
almost like
has to do what he
suicide.
has to do. Right, as much as he wants to put away his gun and he might want to lower it, he knows he's probably going to get shot. But what's the alternative? You go back to Kathleen and say that you had, the guy who killed, was it Alex or whatever in the other episode, and you let
Oh,
him go?
right, right.
Or
And
Just
Brian,
waited.
Brian,
Brian, yeah.
um, right? But oh, you let Brian go. The guy that killed Brian go, and I feel like there would be worse repercussions than just
I
getting
mean,
a
she
shot in the
killed the
head from
doctor.
Joel. Right? They
Yeah.
look the same.
It's funny
A
because
part of me was like, "This a flashback?" No, I'm
yeah,
playing.
what I like also with that moment as well is that it showcases that all these people, for the most part, are not like Call of Duty bearded guy Perry.
No,
He's a
these
one-off.
are
Most
regular
all
people.
these people are just regular people, right? Average Joes, just like Henry was an average person. The doctor, all these people, even Kathleen herself, they're all just regular people. And then just this shit happened to them, and they're put in the circumstances. And you can imagine, it's 20 years later, this old man, he's just tired. Like it's just like I'm done again. And I feel like this show does a great job of everything is almost a reflection of the characters, because that could be Joel in the future as an old man. There's not in another universe. Joel doesn't meet Ellie. He just grows old. Tess either survives or dies, and he gets old alone. Like Ellie says, the worst thing, her fear, is being alone. And maybe that's what this old man is feeling, alone now. I've got to shoot. I can't see properly. I'm a sucky like
Can't
shot.
listen well.
Can't listen. Like there's no pills for
Yeah.
me to take to get stronger, like the game.
He
Like
doesn't have a whole freezer bag of pills anymore in his
right.
back pocket. What?
So you
No
know what?
way.
I know this young 50-year-old whippersnapper is gonna kill me, but whatever. It's better than killing myself. Like I almost get a sense that he knew he was gonna die. And Joel says to him, "Just
But he
give me the
also
gun."
probably knew it would be quick.
Yes,
Which
yes,
Yeah.
in this
yes,
time,
yes,
I feel like that's the best you can ask for. Like, I
yes.
don't want to be ripped apart. I don't want to die and come back,
Did you see how
I
Kathleen was
just,
ripped apart?
yeah.
Oh
Ooh,
yeah.
she's
And
going
she should
in.
have thought about that in her
Ooh.
rage. She should have thought about that. What
Mhm,
way do I want to go?
mhm. It's
Because
funny you say
that
that.
ain't the way.
It's funny because I was thinking about it as Michael was talking before about like the different, um, even the good parts in terms of Frank and Bill, where everyone's like the duos have had sucky endings, and even the good endings are still sucky. But it's almost like the best endings in this universe or in this time period are the endings you get to choose for yourself, right? As opposed to the endings thrown upon you.
Yeah. It's being able to have some type of control of how
Some
you go
control.
out.
Right.
You know, whether it's guns blazing, whether it's throwing bombs like Tess, whether it's
Through your
choosing to
wine.
be your last day in your
You lost,
wine, yeah,
right.
taking some poison. You know, you go out the way that you choose. You know,
Right.
Kathleen chose to get ripped apart, which was
Even
weird for
even
me, but
Tess
she did.
went out the way she
Yeah,
chose, right? She was put in a
yeah,
situation,
exactly. She threw a bomb.
protecting them and things like that. So it's about
Yep.
those choices, and making sure that whatever you do now at least helps, you know, people that need to keep moving forward, right? Endure and survive. Running theme throughout this whole
Endurance
thing.
survive.
Endure and survive. And I think I'm interested to see where it goes next. I'm wondering because again, from the game we jump not too much time, but we jump to the following season, so a couple of months or weeks from the game. I wonder if we're going to fill in those gaps or if we're going to jump forward. I
Oh,
loved,
we didn't talk about the end.
well, see, I don't want
Like
to talk
the
about it.
end. That's I was about to
We
say it's called
jumped,
avoidance.
we jumped forward, we
It's
jumped
called
past it. We
avoidance.
went straight to the, we went straight to the burial. Okay,
We
fine.
gotta talk
You know
about
what?
it. I know it's traumatic. It's hard for us all, and we did a
What I
great
hate
job all
what I
episode
hate
long of avoiding it,
what
but
I
we gotta
hate
address the
about that
elephant.
moment is that as a gamer, you know it's coming. Like you know it's there, but there's a party that's like, but they change stuff in the show all the time. What if this
You
is where
are
they change it?
I feel like I 100% knew it was happening when Ellie did the blood
Yeah.
share thing. I was like, oh, it's a wrap. It's a wrap. It's over. I was like, they're gonna kill him. I'm not ready for this.
And I think
It's
the way
like,
it's played out, even though it's subtly different, I think the differences make huge difference.
it
Just
kind of
the
makes it worse.
right.
Yeah.
It makes it
Yeah.
so much
Give you
worse.
hope.
Yeah. I'm not gonna pretend like it was any better.
But that's what I'm saying.
It
Narratively,
was
it was
worse.
better. Narratively is better. Emotionally, it was worse, and that's why I loved about it. Just even moment where she comes crashing through the door when Sam is attacking Ellie, and Joel goes to react, and Henry grabs the gun and shoots at the floor at
Mhm.
Joel.
Oh,
I love that. He's
All
just
the
like,
same.
it
Yeah.
was so good, but I was like, no, Henry, let Joel do it.
I,
Let
and
Joel
I
do
I,
it.
I'm glad though that they took off the dialogue. Well, the line where Henry is blaming Joel. In
yes,
the game, he was like, "This is
Yeah,
your fault.
yes,
This is your fault." You know, like this woman basically
yeah.
everything led up to your decisions and this. I'm like, no, 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 no.
hmm
This, that. I mean, like I can understand like your thought process. You don't know who to blame. You're in shock,
Right.
but instead, he just kind of like stayed in
What did I
shock. Like, what
do?
did I do? What did I
hmm
do? Not what did you do? This is my fault, rather than Joel's.
and I think what
It's
makes it
terrible
even
too because
go.
no. No,
No.
I'm just saying it makes it worse because like another thing that we were saying, like, you know, it further feeds into these protector types having no lives after their person is gone. Like
They failed.
literally what the hell was Bill supposed to do? You know, the day after Frank died. What the hell
hmm
was he gonna do? You
Yeah,
know?
yeah.
It's like things like that. And I feel like Henry in this moment, it's the same thing. It's like sadly when, you know, he takes his own life, it's like it literally is that moment. I killed my purpose. You
Mm-hmm.
know, there's really no reason for him. Like, what's he gonna continue on with Joel and Ellie? Survive for what? You know, his entire life, you've that's what you've spent your past 8 years doing, you know? So whew,
Yeah,
it's
you got other
Um,
people killed for him.
right,
yeah. I was
right.
gonna say that. I
You
think
got a good man killed for him
a
too.
great man,
Great.
and not just
Mm-hmm.
that. It shows like you can't escape your fate. It comes back to you.
Mm-hmm.
He tries to escape his fate. And what I like also is when he says, "What did I do?" Like you mentioned, it's all that's compounded. And he's my favorite line of his. I'm a bad guy because I did bad guy stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And so like all that to like, what did I do? And having to, and it's made even worse. Now you have to the tragic irony in trying to save your brother. You end up having to be the one to shoot him, and just like, oof, ouch. And
You
then
got someone else's brother killed and then you killed yours.
And then
Well,
while
Kathleen, just stick around to the end next time. No, I'm
right,
playing.
right,
Stick around to the end of the episode,
and
all
actually,
right? Don't get
ironically,
You'll see it all
overzealous.
play
it's
out.
fun.
Yeah.
Actually, it's funny you say that. It's funny you say that because ironically, at that point, if Kathleen had run away, Sam had already been bitten.
Exactly.
He'd already bitten because so he was. I think he was bitten at that point where they were under the car,
They're
Yeah.
under the
kicking
car.
at the legs,
Yeah,
right?
definitely.
Yeah, exactly that point. Speaking of, let's go back a bit. That conversation between Sam and Henry. I mean, Sam and Ellie talk about avoidance when he's like talking about being afraid. What happens to you when you're? Oof.
We
Gotta
don't
tell
have
you,
to talk about that part.
that kid, that kid is so cute that just seeing his fear of death, I'm just like, whew,
When he said
damn.
stay up with me, I was like,
I was so mad at her that she fell asleep.
I know. I was like, you lied.
Well, she
If you
You
didn't
could have
kept
last
the
stayed
episode
up, he would
two.
have
promise.
survived.
She's
But
like, I'm not even
here's the
Right.
thing,
tired.
right? But what I find crazy with that, and the creators have almost kind of hinted at this in in their podcast, that the fact that the zombie version of Sam is still death, it means that it's still Sam in there for a bit. It's assumed that you're still you inside for a bit. It just deteriorates over time, right? Because we've seen, or sometimes it can, because we've seen that the fungus can fix certain things, right? So the fact that he's still deaf means that he's in there. I think the writer said it's almost like going on a bad trip. You're aware but have zero control. So just like that's even more tragic that
That
he had this
sucks.
fear and that fear was real for him. It's just like, oof. It's moments like that that remind me that, yeah, this is also a horror narrative.
Yeah. Oh, it is.
Like
Horror trauma
it is horror.
genre.
It is a part of the horror genre. And for me,
Right.
this is the kind of horror that just makes you like after watching it, you're still thinking about it and you think of that rabbit hole of what that means and it scares you even more. That's real horror for me. I just think that's done
Yeah.
really, really well.
It's funny, I realized this show and Poker Face are like my current two favorite shows.
So
And my wife
good.
and I had a moment of realization like, we got to find a show where people don't die every week.
Right?
I really need a
This is true.
It's something a little
non-traumatic
lighter now.
show. Right. Luckily for me, Abbott's Elementary came back. So,
Oh yeah,
Yay.
love Abbott.
Yay.
because I was
Abbott's
like,
so
give me
good.
some happy, fun elementary school kid teachers.
Right?
'Cause
Don't kill
fuck.
anyone off in that school, please.
Right. That and Shrinking.
Shrinking's
Saving
so
the day
good.
for me right now. Shrinking's very good.
Shrinking's so good.
But yeah, this was woof. I didn't even like. I usually watch all the episodes twice.
Hmm.
So like this episode and the Bill and Frank episode, I couldn't. Nope.
Like that's
I took
enough.
very very thorough notes, and I was like, "Fuck that."
That's enough.
No. I was like, absolutely not. No. Poor
Just
Henry.
couple of
It hurts
things.
every time.
Couple of
Sam
things.
had a swift death.
I liked when Henry puts the paint on Sam's face using wall paint. Okay.
Which
Whatever.
I don't approve
Yeah, I was like,
of, but okay. I was like, I think it's even worse after 20 years.
but what I liked, it's just it's a small thing, but I just thought it was brilliant. All he does the paint, and he tries to have him look at himself. He does it through the knife as a reflection, because it's like, well, yeah, how many reflective surfaces are easy to find, mirrors and things like that. Just there's little things that you kind of take for granted that in the post-apocalyptic again
That word takes you out every time.
post-apocalyptic world, the little things you wouldn't think of. Again, just even like his was it etch a sketch type thing pad to write on, the little
That
things.
was so cute.
Love that.
clever.
I just thought those are things that are important, right? In the end, in the post-apocalyptic world. Also, Joel's glass trap sucked because he tiptoed around
Trash.
it.
Literally instantly. Oh,
Even
Spread
if
that
he
out,
wasn't
man.
deaf in one ear.
Just trash.
Just
They
it
just
just took
like,
him to
oh,
roll
look.
over once.
Right.
They just tiptoed around his glass. I was just like, well, what is the point, Joel, if they could just tiptoe around it?
Right. Come on now.
Any other moments that we have mentioned that stood out to you guys? Oh, Raven, Mike, we
Yeah.
finally got the comics.
Yes, we got the comics, the actual
Of
comics
course.
themselves. Yeah. Also, the drawing that they find in the sewers is actually literally the exact same
Yeah.
drawing from the game, which
Hmm.
I
Yeah.
love. So
Yeah.
any of us that played the game, the moment that they picked up the note and it was like Ish, our defenders. Oh,
Yeah.
Ish, who we never got to fucking meet.
Nope.
I wanted to be a guy.
No.
And lastly, just the weapon upgrades for this episode. So obviously Ellie got a knife slash shiv, and we got to
And she shivved.
we learned the sneak hide attribute.
Okay.
And we also got a
I was
sniper
gonna say
rifle.
Joel got a
Yes.
sniper now. I feel like he's getting
Good old
again,
sniper
just
rifle
like the game,
now.
getting new guns every time. Although you don't have a magical
Right.
backpack to put them all in now.
He hasn't found that yet.
Gotta drop them.
He hasn't found the magical
He hasn't found the backpack
No, that's true.
yet,
Yeah,
but
that's
I
true.
hope he will. I'm interested. I really want to see if there's gonna be a flamethrower, man.
Also, this is the
How are they gonna make that realistic?
no.
I want to.
I feel like we are going to see a flamethrower, but I think the real question is like
Yeah,
what Mike brought up last week: are they going to throw a bottle and or a brick? That's the real weapon.
When
question.
is the
Or
bottle brick
Molotov.
happening?
That you
I
can
Or
light
need
up
Molotov.
as soon as you pull
Molotov,
it out, and
a
then put
bottle,
it
or
in
a
your
brick.
backpack as it's still
Right.
lit.
Right,
Because
right.
as of right now, we got sniper rifle, we got Ellie's knife slash shiv.
Or
We had an AK-47, but we left it in the other board. You got to go back to get that one.
Mhm.
what about
So we're doing
the
all right.
little
The nail bomb.
tin can?
Yeah.
nail bomb.
That was
Yes,
Bill's
we-
invention, though, so that's already gone. Unless
do
someone
need
else
a
gives
nail
it to him.
bomb.
Yeah.
Maybe his
Yeah,
brother
yeah.
invents it.
Have we seen a nail? No, we
No,
haven't
we
seen
haven't.
a nail bomb. The only bomb we saw was Tessa's bomb. That was a real bomb.
Yeah,
It
that was a real
bomb.
grenade.
Yeah, stop
This
saying
this
bomb on the
episode,
podcast. Bomb, 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 bomb.
this was the first episode where the word clicker was mentioned. By the way, I didn't realize. I
You
was like,
guys
oh
saw clicker.
yeah. Yep, it hadn't. The word clicker has not been mentioned until this episode.
We spoiled.
Right? We were
Double
saying clicker,
spoiled.
clicker, 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 clicker.
Just right, just clicker.
And then
Oh, and a bloater. Like we just damn.
Raven's grandma was like, "What the heck is this? I don't know what that is."
Right, what are they talking about? Clicker. Like, what's that thing? Meanwhile,
I think they also did a
I
great
think that's
job.
actually it now.
No, I was gonna say this episode did a great job with set design, because that whole sequence with just the set, right? They actually built that set in the cul-de-sac with the sniper, and then the
That
whole
cul-de-sac was spot
Yeah.
on. The vans that they ducked behind, like the same cars, the tank that came back with
Right.
the run.
And he
the front. I
shoots
loved
the
it.
window.
Mhm.
The same thing
Yup,
in the
and you have to
game.
shoot the window and the
Right.
tank blows up. Honestly, that whole scene, like even if you don't play the game, guys, I hope you play that one scene. I don't know how
Right.
you would do it. If you know somebody that owns the game, you can go back and play that one scene now. So that scene is fire. It's so
Yeah,
good.
right.
It doesn't play out exactly the same because there's
No bloater.
there's no bloater
Or,
horde coming out of
no.
the
Yeah,
ground.
they're not coming around.
They do come.
But it's yeah.
They
Yes,
do horde.
yes.
There is a horde, but
Yeah.
there's a horde mixed with enemies, which is kind of it sucks more because you're like, should I shoot the clicker or the regular person who can
Who are trying to
think
shoot.
and right and react, or should I shoot this other person that can't see Ellie when she ducked under a
Mhm.
car? I don't know. So it's very high stakes.
But I think again, this show does a great job of having actors come in, do one episode, do a fucking fantastic job, and kill
Yeah.
it, and then out.
They can kill it
then
and
be
then they
like,
get killed.
"Peace." I'll see you at the Oscars. All
Right?
right, see you
The
at
Emmys,
Golden
yeah.
Globes.
Like it's just like out. I was like, okay. Like even
Right.
Kathleen. I mean, I love what she brought.
She
to
killed
Robert.
it. She had like 15
I was like,
minutes
okay.
of screen time. Fucking trash.
But
Brian, I fucking love Brian.
right, even Brian, old man sniper guy.
The way he called for his mom. Ugh, old man sniper guy with beard.
Right, like I feel like what I appreciate about this show that other shows wouldn't have had the restraint to do, it doesn't drag things out. The Kathleen Henry story would have been like 6 episodes in
Whole
another show.
season. Yeah. And then
Right,
you would have found
true.
out he got her brother killed. Oh
Right.
my.
And then we'd
That
have a
would've
whole
been the
flashback
biggest
of
thing.
that and have a whole
Mm.
episode seeing that betrayal
Yeah.
happen. It doesn't waste any time. It moves along and it gets its narrative moving. And I think when a show is based on a game that's like 15 to 20 hours long, it's easy to kind of be like, we can drag it out. Players won't care. But
No.
I appreciate that they're not. We're moving again. As much as I would love to see more of Sam, I think having them in one episode tell their story, go, is what's needed, because also their story is also about driving Ellie and Joel's narrative forward, right? Seeing those graves that they left behind and moving away from them is a reminder to Joel that that could be two of you.
Yep.
Any of these character duos we've met could have been you or
Yeah.
both of you in any given moment. And what you have is each other, and you got to keep going, endure, and survive. And as much as Ellie is starting to lose that part of her, Joel is started to regain that part of himself. So now it's up to
Mm-hmm.
him to make sure she doesn't lose herself, right? Because she's helped bring him back. As she's losing herself, she's losing her innocence. She's becoming darker, and he's starting to notice that more and more and more. And he has to he's realizing that she can't. What I have become, she can't become, because it's not good. And I love that about the show. And this is why I tell people that this is not just a zombie show. It's a character show. It's not called The Last of Zombies. It's called The Last of Us.
It's about us. Damn it.
There was a Republican senator who went on. You can search it. I won't go into detail. Who went on a Twitter rant after the Frank and Bill episode, saying, "I can't believe there's no zombies in this zombie show. We're seeing this stupid story about this same sex couple. Blah 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 blah." And it's like people came and said, "It's not called Zombie Show."
They
Like,
don't even mention the word in
They
it.
never made it seem like a zombie show.
I forgot to mention this. What I like also about how they use inclusivity in this show is that the narratives aren't about that.
Yep.
Bill and Frank's story wasn't about being gay. It was a love story that anyone could relate to. Sam and Henry, Sam's story wasn't about him being deaf. In fact, the catalyst was his leukemia, not him being
Mhm.
deaf. So it's like it's has this inclusion, but it's not like, oh, we're only doing this because we're only bringing these people in because we're telling that
Right.
story about
Yeah.
them. It's like, no, we're telling these character stories who happen to be gay, who happens to be deaf, but the story isn't about that. Like Raven, like you said before, some points you're like, is this actor actually deaf? Because again, the story wasn't about him being deaf. Character was deaf in this world, yes, and he understood the hardships he has to go through in this kind of situation. But you also get a sense of most of his hardships he's had to go through and the protection his brother offers to him aren't necessarily because he's deaf, which is a part of it though. It's because he's young and a kid, and he needs protection. So regardless of being deaf or not, his older brother would want to protect him. The protection comes in different ways, and his brother's sacrifice, in terms of sacrificing this great man, was because his brother was sick, not because his brother was deaf. And I think that distinction in the storytelling, I thought was really well done. I think I really appreciated that. Um, if there's anything else, what do you nerdies think of this show? We've crossed the halfway line. We're coming towards the final third act of the first season. What do you gamers think of this series so far? The changes, the similarities. What do you newcomers think? Are you confused? Do you just like finally understand what clickers means? You guys have been talking about this whole time. Raven's grandma, what do you think a bloater even looks like? We're saying the word bloater.
Right.
I want to imagine the
Like, what does
visual.
it mean, Basil?
The bloater in this, I think in this context, different from the game, where this one is just because they're big and almost bloated like. But in the game,
Yeah.
they also have these kind of pods of gas growing on their bodies, like these gross things that they chuck at you
Yeah.
and explode in your face. I wonder if the bloaters, we spoke about it last week, if they had a different way of turning people, or they just kill. It's
Probably.
just,
I think they're just like
do they rip
tanks
heads?
for this horde.
Yeah,
Just
yeah,
literally
yeah.
enduring
Just like,
and surviving. Endure these
right.
bullets. Stampede through it
I
all.
do like that. They're just like cannot be
Yeah.
killed. I mean, they can be killed,
Takes a
but
lot.
not so easily. In the
It
game,
takes a lot. It takes a flamethrower,
cocktails, Molotov cocktails, flamethrowers,
a
everything,
lot of empty beer bottles,
whatever you can find in
Yeah.
your endless bag.
some bricks.
Don't let it touch
Yeah,
you.
a couple
Rips your
bricks.
beard/head
All
off.
right.
No.
Anyway,
Oh,
let us know
yeah.
what you think of this show so far. Let us know what you think of this podcast so far. Find us on social medias, all your social medias at the Nerdy Bunch. And thank you, Raven.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you, Dave.
My name's English Dave, and this has been a Nerdy Bunch presentation of The Bunch of Us, where we spoke about The Last of Us Episode 5, Endure and Survive. And as always, Raven,
Keep it nerdy. Peace.
peace.